Okay. Let's see. And I believe we're live. I didn't check over on YouTube because I don't want to use up the bandwidth or whatever, but if not, it's recording.
I see a live thing there.
Good. Alrighty. So what do you think? Should we give it another minute or so to see if anybody joins the chat, or should we just go right into it?
Give it a minute or something.
Easy enough. Yeah. So it's another Sunday here. We made it back. We survived another week.
You know, Texas was rough this past week. That was a place to be for this past week.
It was the only thing in the headlines, really.
I know. And the only time I've ever been to Texas was for literally just that snowstorm, and I left like the day that it got warm.
I think the snow follows you.
It might. That's what people are saying.
I'm starting to think that as well.
Okay. I was born in a snowstorm.
Don't come to New York. We have enough here.
I'll steer clear.
Yeah, it's weird. It's even snowing in like crazy parts of the world where typically, like in Africa, it snowed, like in the desert. Yeah, that was just recent, and not a whole lot like what you've just experienced in Texas, but nonetheless, it's pretty bad.
Snow in Africa. That's crazy. Yeah.
Well, some parts of Africa does snow just because it's like cold enough. But if it's like in the middle of Central Africa, like never should be snowing there.
Right. Like it hadn't snowed there in over like 15 years or something like that. So it's very rare. Jesus. All right. Well, I think I'm going to go ahead and get this introduction started, and we can begin if everyone's okay with that. Excellent. Hello, everyone. My name is Remedy, and I am with the Maroon Liberation School Book Club. I'd like to welcome you. Today, we have our guests, my co-host, Carla, and one of our fearless leaders, and also from the West Sphere, we also have Dency, who will be joining us shortly. We're going to be discussing Maroon The Implacable, The Dragon and the Hydra. It's a pretty in-depth chapter, and it's going to be, like I said, it's going to be deep. Well, I haven't said that, but I'm letting you know now. It's going to be deep and hopefully very insightful. So I'm here because of the author, Russell Maroon Shoatz, who is currently fighting stage 4 cancer, and it's really not looking good according to the latest health report that I've gotten on him. And also to bring awareness to his plight. He is a political prisoner, and he's been incarcerated over 43 years now, and 20 of those years in which he spent in the hole in solitary confinement. For me personally, my opinion is that he has served his time and he should be freed for sure. If you are interested in learning more about the author, there are links above in the banner of this YouTube channel. We would like to invite you to subscribe and to join us each week in our book club here. And I think that's about all I have to say for now. Please join us again next week, and I'm going to pass the mic off to my lovely co-host, Carla.
Hey everybody, it's Carla. I'm streaming in from Chicago. I'm also here because I'm totally inspired and in awe of author Russell Maroon Shoatz. He, like Remedy said, he's been in prison for more than 48 years, 22 of them in solitary confinement, and he still is fighting and educating us and allowing us to be here and talk about his work and all the amazing things that he's done. I said I'm in Chicago. I'm 20 years old. I'm an artist, and I've been working with the Maroon Party for Liberation, going to their Monday night liberation schools for the past 4 or 5 months or so. And was inspired to create this book club and spread political awareness with the fantastic Remedy and Gen C. And so Gen C, if you want to take it away, introduce yourself.
Hi, I don't want to waste too much time on my introduction because let's get to the reading. But I'm Jen. I'm also a member of the West, and I like to consider myself someone that's marooning around to a whole bunch of groups. And I do a little bit of activism here and a little bit there. And, I just want to see things change around here. So starting off, I found it very interesting and helpful the way he starts off this essay. And I just wanted to kind of paraphrase a little bit because what he says is very insightful. And to me, it was complex until I wrote out my own thoughts about it. But paraphrasing about anarchism. Anarchism is a European ideology. It's reactionary to the fascist repressive mechanism of Western imperialism. On the other hand, the Hydra, which is a many-headed mythological beast of warring maroon societies, are natural social structures. Maroon communities are indigenous and earth-centered, and they basically win their wars by decentralized guerrilla tactics. In contrast to that, there's also democratic centralism, which is the Leninist organizational system in which the policy decides centrally in which policies, and it's also binding on all of its members. So I always saw it as the problem with communism and let's say China or how the Soviet Union was that it's a very top down type of organization. And to me, it doesn't matter what ideology you're following, but when you're having just people at the center, a very small group decide for everyone, human nature, just people, even if they're not really capitalists, they start thinking in this way that they are the elite and they deserve more. And that's such a problem. But so it was really helpful for me to see how Russell puts it, that it's centralized or decentralized.
Yeah, totally. So this chapter is discussing and analyzing past historical organizational methods. And so we get this introduction with a quote from Karl Marx. I can read that now. You have 15, 20 years of civil wars and people's struggles to go through, not only to change the conditions, but in order to change yourselves and make yourselves fit for political rule. And so after what Jen just talked about was democratic centralism, which is what Marxism, Leninism, communism has generally followed, even though it's for the people and it's supposed to be run by the people. In the majority of cases, we've seen that all the power falls in the hands of a very small group of people, which is never a successful way to organize as a group, because if you want everybody having input, you can't hold all of the power to make changes within 3 people. Here, I'm going to read a quote from page 104. So here, one of Marx's, he's a writer about Marxism, and he was the author of the theory that explains state capitalism, and he was a mentor of the African revolutionaries Jomo Kenyatta and Kwame I should have looked up the pronunciation, Nkrumah, and who both brought Kenya and Ghana out of colonialism. And so here's on page 104 this quote. We have repudiated the conception of the vanguard party. And vanguard party means the one party who has the way to do things. And so the party that's leading or has the idea that they should be the leaders. The conception ruined the socialist movement, and the movement of the proletariat for the generation. The Vanguard Party conception ruined all attempts to form a Marxist party in the US and contributed substantially to the catastrophes which have befallen it. What has happened is that their whole outlook and mentality have been dominated by the concept of a vanguard party, which had to teach the people about Marxism and other such matters, which would make the people understand that they, the preachers, were the ones who should be followed, as they were the leaders of the socialist revolution. The whole Stalinist experiment, the whole Nazi regime, are not the result of evil men. They are a result of the drive towards the unification of the executive and political organization of all aspects of the state. Democratic centralism's historical modus operandi, which is supervised and enforced by the Vanguard Party. So again, this quote is speaking about the errors of Marxism and Leninism, which is the default to democratic centralism and the idea that there is a vanguard party, that there's one way to have a political party. There's rules that must be followed in a political regime, all organized by two men. And that's not the way that we want to do things. And so, Jen, if you have anything to say about that.
Yeah, it just kind of, it's interesting to me because I was thinking about it. It's kind of like, one of the reasons why, like, for me, democratic centralism is destined to fail is because it's like, it's still a state that's based on written law. And I feel like the decentralized maroon societies base their law on like culture and tradition. There's like a different morality there. Like there's you could just see that like big ruling states is just, it's destined to fail. And it's kind of like a system that the world system is set up to fail. There's a whole industry of not only just like the military, industrial military complex, but now we have like disaster capitalism, where people make money off of people dying and states not being able to do what they promised to do and protect people. I think Remedy wants to say something, so I'm gonna.
Yeah, I just wanted to briefly chime in on that because it's very true. Like that written law stuff seems to be a bit outdated and very machismo, which doesn't work. It's just doesn't work. It's brutal, it's barbaric, and it doesn't care anything. It doesn't give like one bit of concern about the well-being, the true well-being of family and culture and people, or the earth. So yeah, this was a pretty heavy chapter for me. I really have a problem with slavery and that kind of oppression. So yeah, I'm gonna pass it back to you guys as I process. Oh, and welcome to our chat, our viewers in the chat. We do have somebody here with us.
Yay, MJ. Hey, MJ. So I'll say again, we're talking about The Dragon and the Hydra, the study of organizational methods, which was written in 2006. And so back to the chapter, he first talks about democratic centralism and introduces this with a quote from Marx. And then he gives three examples of, it was three examples, Suriname, Jamaica, and Haiti, of communities that fought against European imperialism and capitalist imperialism in a maroon way, which is decentralized. And communities that are decentralized and autonomous, and they're never dependent on imperialists, and showing their successes and how they defeated imperialism and colonialism, especially in Haiti. They're the first, I don't have it written down. I do remember they were one of the only colonies to liberate themselves all as people who were all enslaved and fighting against imperialists. And so it can be done. And unfortunately, we're living in a reality where people don't see that as an option anymore, or as revolution as an option, and we are seeing so many horrific effects of of capitalism and imperialism on our communities within the United States, and everywhere else. But I think the idea that people need to get into their minds is that there is something that we can do about this, and we can learn from these Maroons who fought for their communities and created a better life for themselves through being Maroons and being decentralized and autonomous. And so let's see. I'm going to go into some of the historical overview and the outline of European imperialism in, Remedy?
Yeah, before you move on, I was just wondering if Jen had anything else to add to what we were just discussing.
The one connection that I would like to make to, which I found was so interesting, we were talking about it in the school on Monday. What was it, like 2 weeks ago, about like who were the non-treaty Maroons, and then we're introduced to the Boni, which are non-treaty Maroons, and it was just so fascinating, that part, how he explained it all, because you could really see, like, going back to what I was saying about written law, like the Maroons that signed the treaties ultimately not only sold out other Maroon societies, but that led to them being kind of assimilated into this other system that just destroyed, what they could have too. I just found that very, very interesting.
And if I can just go on that off of that, it just goes to show you that, like, these contracts or treaties that we tend to go into, with our states, surrogate state, always end up screwing us. They go back on their word. It's in this chapter alone. I think there were a couple of references made to broken treaties, or the colonizers trying to go back on their, not agreeing, not sticking to the treaty. And it's still to this day very, very, it still happens with the pipeline and everything else. So don't ever sign treaties. Don't agree to the contracts. Do not sign.
Yeah, especially not when they're from this government. Jen's back. Okay, I was going to read a quote because Jen brought up the Boni Maroons, which is good transition point. So I'm going to page 112. And so this is the portion of the chapter talking about Suriname, and he's giving short outline of various worker struggles against early European imperialism. Oh, and one more thing before I go into that. Something that I wanted to highlight was that Shoatz he's arguing that Marx is underestimating the opposition of workers and the needs of workers, because Marxism, I'm not a communist expert. I know workers and People's Party, but he is still trapped in this European mindset, and only thinking of workers as Europeans. When you can't ignore the fact that slavery existed, and it was this idea, like, working people, even though it's forced work, but underestimating what those people need. And he says that you work for 10, 15 years to get something done, but it's these people have been doing this for hundreds of years. But there are some people like Maroons that say, no, we don't want to fight for 15 years for our liberation. We want it now. So we're going to leave and do our own thing. And so, yeah, it's a critique of Marxism, and using these examples of Suriname, Jamaica, and Haiti as the critique. And so now I'll go into a quote from page 112 about the Boni Maroons. So let's see. Yet once it became known to the still enslaved African workers that they could no longer rely on the Njuka, Saramaka, and Matawai for refuge and protection, they began to seek out smaller Maroon communities. In the early 1700s, one of those small groups was headed by an African named Asikan Sylvester. Born into this group was a child called Boney. His mother was a fugitive African and his father either African or Amerindian. Subsequently, the group chose Boney to be its new head after Asikan became too old. This group of Maroons would eventually become known to the Dutch as the new center of resistance, and for the next 2 generations, Boney would lead them. They would become known to history as the Boney Maroons, transforming themselves into an ethnicity. Thus, the Boney Maroons became a new contentious force, while the imperialists thought they were suppressing resistance by the signing of treaties with other Maroons. Consequently, the imperialists would not sign any more treaties with either the Bonies or any other Maroons, which lasted to the end of the slave period. And let's see. Yet, even while the Bonies became the main fighting force among all of those Maroons who were still at war with the Dutch, they still observed and respected the democratic wishes of any fugitives or Maroon groups they dealt with, never trying to centralize all control in their hands. Although the Bonies were masters in the use of coordinated guerrilla campaigns among all of the decentralized groups, during which a unified command was essential, they still never demanded that everyone integrate themselves into the Boney community, nor did the other Maroons put themselves directly under the Bonies' leadership outside of agreed-upon guerrilla campaigns and raids. And he's saying, while leaders such as Koromatin Kojo, Chief Puja, Boney, and Barone often united for large campaigns, their respective Maroon communities remained decentralized and autonomous. And so that's about, let's see, that was a quote from the chapter on Suriname talking about this leader of the Maroon group, Boney. And although he was you might think that like a centralized leader or one person, it's hard to have a group that is successful without, somebody to see as like a guiding force. But the main thing that differentiates between the Bonies and like a vanguard party is that they never forced anybody to come into their group. They never asked something of somebody that they didn't want to do, which is different from vanguard parties believing that they know the way to go and that this will be the solution to all problems. Maroons don't think that way. Jen, I see you. You look ready to talk.
Yeah, I was just going to say he's more of like a unifier than like a central leader. I mean, decentralized combat, like you really can't, like our imperial force couldn't deal with it. The VetCon like kicked our butts. That's all. I'm sorry. I'm just going to chime in and say random things from now on.
Don't be sorry about that. I feel you. Now, in this chapter, he makes reference to a book on the Boney. Have either of you? I forget what the name of it is, but it's in my book. Have either of you read the book that he made reference to in this chapter? No.
But I really want
something interesting though. Me too. I'm with you on that. Absolutely.
I've got the name pulled up here. At the end of the chapter, just skipping forward a little bit, he does give a recommended book list. And so all of the books that he's quoted, and the book that Remedy was referring to was The Boney Maroon Wars in Suriname by Wim S.M. Hoogbergen. If you have the book, or even if you don't have the book, you can go onto zlib.org, download it, and then you can scroll to the end of the Dragon and the Hydra chapter, and there's a good summary of the books that he recommends throughout the chapter. All right.
I have a question, because I feel like it was very it's implicit, but not really, like it's not as well defined as talking about like the Hydra. I think that's a very clear symbol. Like, what do you guys make of the dragon? Because I feel like you see that in different ways.
Right. Okay, so not to get biblical on you, but the Bible does make a reference to the 7-headed beast. And for me, in my spiritual learnings, I've come to believe that like the seven-headed beast that the Bible is referring to is the seven strongest nations, the seven strongest continents, countries in the world. Like that's the seven-headed beast. And so that's for me, like that's the Hydra. I think he was talking about the global, governance, or the global slave masters or whatever, imperialists that were trying to take over the world, that are still trying to take over the world, unfortunately. So yeah, that's my thought on the Hydra. Carla, any thoughts?
So, I mean, I think it's a really beautiful metaphor because the Hydra is like this creature that can rebuild itself and find itself in new places. Like when one head gets chopped off, another one grows, and it will be set because it's decentralized. But the dragon is this like one-headed fire-breathing machine. And for me, I think that is representative of European imperialism and capitalism, and this like ever beating down force that seems as though it's like the most powerful thing to, like dragons are historically, like in myths, they are like the thing to be afraid of. And I think that it is a myth, though, that it's the one thing to be afraid of, because we have the Hydra too to balance it out. And so I think, yeah, the dragon is like the idea of the centralized like forces. What about you, Jen?
Yeah, I feel it's kind of like it's democratic centralism, but it's also like when decentralized groups come together. But at the same time, I think it's such an apt and like nuanced metaphor, because when you think of a dragon is very powerful, but it'll destroy everything in its path. Which that's what I got kind of from like the problem with centralism. Like it's going to take down everything eventually. It's going to suck everything to its center and nothing's going to be left. So I found that really interesting.
That's a great point, and I think that's pretty much where we're at now. We're being sucked down into the everything, yeah, I got a lot of thoughts on like on what we can,
That's also like
what it could look like.
It's happening right now, but that's also like that's the Western way. Like Western civilizations always expand until they can't anymore, and then just crumble. And then indigeneity takes it over again.
Yeah, he mentions in the beginning of the chapter that the main threat is capitalism. It's not these other people that are trying to, fight against capitalism. What is wrong with their idea is that they know exactly how to fix the problem, and that it's not like something that needs to be worked out anymore. It's like they have the way to go.
Yeah.
But you can see everywhere around us, and I'll loop us back around to Mother Earth centeredness, how capitalism is like destroying our Earth, and the place that this is where we reside. There's nowhere to escape if we don't have the Earth below our feet. And it's like, yeah, the capitalism is this fire beating down on all of us. It's killing people, enslaving people, keeping people in prison. Like we can see that capitalism literally is using people that are in prison right now for their benefit, not paying them to make products that we purchase on like Amazon every day. And like we don't even know if what is made by people that are working in prisons or like, and it's disgusting that we fall into the trap of capitalism, and like so many people are ignorant to it and they kind of put their blinders up to ignore that it's happening all around us. But there is a way to move through capitalism without, like people say, well, there's nothing you can do about it. We live in capitalism, which is true. There's nothing that like maybe, but it's not true. We can fight against capitalism. There's other ways to like get goods, or to like, obviously having a job is hard. Not like if you need to work at at Amazon, or like I work at a pizza place, whatever. Like you need to make money in capitalism, but also there's ways to maroon around it.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say that, like, there's still ways that we could build up our own infrastructure and just
Right.
like building relationships with other people, and that is building communities and interconnecting communities that don't necessarily have to be like, okay, this one person is what we're going to do and we're going to follow, but there could be commonality of just wanting the greater good for everyone. And we could take back our identities as being linked to like our own personal freedom. Like that's what I get out of most of all of like studying Maroons, which is just
Yeah.
such a beautiful, positive way, because it's fascinating that like when you see, Maroon communities in Jamaica, like they know they're free because they know that's their ethnicity, like that's who they are.
Yes, their culture and their new, identity has not been stripped from them this time around. And yeah, I think to go back to what you were talking about, Carla, with this whole capitalism, and a thing we can do is definitely steer away from mass consumerism. Being consumers of, like, the amount of energy that it requires to bottle water is ridiculous. It takes more. It costs more to make a bottle of water than it does, to give water, to have water for an entire population. It's very, very sickening and disgusting to think about the way globalists have tapped into all of these natural resources that are ours, that were here on Earth before them, that are ours. I am a firm believer that change is coming and change will happen, but it takes political education, like we're doing and like we've been doing, and awareness to create that change. And it's probably also going to take, unfortunately, another revolution. Who was it? I forget who was it that originally said the only solution is a revolution. But what a brilliant quote that is, and I just really like that one. Oh,
I was looking up that quote
no
to
dead
see
air.
if I could find the only solution is revolution.
You're so awesome. Yeah.
It's a song by Ben Boudou, or Revolution is Only Solution by Funky Destination. I don't know if those are the two, if either of those are your people, but I think it's true. And
I think it was Kwame. It may have been Kwame too that said it. I was at. I think so. Yeah. I was sitting in a Zoom meeting with Angela Davis as one of the speakers, and one of the other panelists had said who the Who's who. Well, he had said that quote, and he even said who originally said it, but it didn't stick. But I just love that phrase, though. I don't know why I find so much joy. Oh, I was just saying, I don't know why I find so much joy in, like, doing revolutionary type work. And maybe because it's empowering, I guess. But I always get like really happy and excited when I think about like change, not Obama change.
Because that's not real change. That's like, here, we changed from this to that. That's not much change.
It's a pendulum swing, which is what our bipartisan system is. You get a little more conservative, you get a little more centralist, I would say, because I don't really see the Democratic Party as particularly progressive.
The Republican Party ain't doing diddly squiddly either. It's very much a
But
homogenized in bed kind of relationship.
but
It's the
now
same in one.
the way how far right things swung, like, and during the
Thanks,
Trump
Trump.
administration, like we don't even, it's like a wild card now, like the swing back.
People are saying that this new Biden administration is like a diet Trump because it's like, oh, he won't, like, he's not going to be aggressively like or violent speech on his Twitter, but like he'll be creepy towards women in all these videos, and like it'll be less, but it's still
And
there.
kids. Creepy
And
toward kids
children.
too.
Yeah. It's like,
Yeah.
okay. Do you know what I'm talking about, Jen? Have you seen those videos?
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
Yeah.
Creeper.
Yeah.
Creeper. Yeah. And also he's in bed with and he's in bed with like the Clintons, and we all know that, you know, whoa, what evildoers those that whole name is, the Clintons, the Bushes, but you know, well, that's a whole nother story. I should probably not say things like that, or else YouTube might actually, like, you know, be mad at me.
I just feel like, yes, in a sense, policy wise, but culturally wise, no. Trump was its own little, you know, he just opened up, like he came in saying that he was going to drain the swamp, but he just let the back door open for
A cesspool.
lot of plotting white supremacist groups that probably paid to make sure that he would get in the first place.
Yeah, and that's why I was like saying the diet, because like Biden is not outwardly violent and aggressive. Like he hasn't said things in his speech or like coordinated like violence to happen. But it's crazy to think that like now it's like this swing back, or like people think that this is, oh, things are going to be changing now. Like this is fixed now because he's out of office. Like at least he's not, but it's like, well, what now? Like we can't just rely on our government still to fix the problems. Like
We definitely can't rely on the government because
illusion.
Yeah, we definitely cannot rely on the government because they're just like underhandedly self-serving, and it's not good. I mean, this whole democracy thing that they're trying to enforce upon the world, I don't think I really like it. I don't like, I mean, in my entire life, we've been, you know, it's been a democratic, like, it's been democracy. Like, it's not that great. Like, don't really need it. You know, I think just culture and humanity is pretty much, will cover all of our basic needs. It's pretty simple. A lot of people think that that we come too far, that we can't like go back to like the days where like it takes a village to raise a child, it takes a whole village to raise a child, and things like that. People think that, oh, you know, we're too far advanced to go back, but guess what? So we're so far advanced, yet there's so many people that don't have homes, that don't have jobs, that don't have decent education, that don't have decent healthcare. So how far advanced are we?
Yeah, really. Jen, was there something you wanted to say?
No, my kids just busted in.
We got a revolutionary matriarch on the screen. Yeah, and
Absolutely.
Something
Black Lives Matter. You say it every time she sees like a crowd of people. Like, it's so funny how like conditioned they become at an early age. She's been to like 2 protests, and if she sees like a crowd of people with signs, she's like, Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. Right?
Yes. That's beautiful.
See, that's what we need. We need revolutionary matriarchs coming in and teaching children what it like this. Yeah, it all starts with education. That's why we're here. Teaching people about like, and like taking off the blinders and like not no longer having this ignorance to like what the actual situation is, like what our reality is. I think so many people, especially young people, like they don't understand that like we actually need to do something like immediately right now. And it's hard to get people to be on board to like take off your blinders and no longer like feel like trapped in this society. Like we can change how we're living. And so many
And I
people
think
don't
people
think
are
that's-
ready.
Yeah. Yes, I think people are ready. And like, how long ago was the American Revolution? What, in the 1700s? History or dates, historical dates are not my thing. But like, maybe, I don't know. There's got to be something drastic that happens because in the United States, like our government is better than in a lot of places, like wise for the rights of people, but it's still people are we're wasting 40% of all the food we produce every day. There are still homeless people on the streets when we have new apartment complexes being built for rich people that are like $5,000 a month for one bedroom, like just because you have this view. Like it's disgusting that now like nobody what was the quote? I just read this quote. It was from Confucius. I've been reading like Chinese analytics. If a government is well run, nobody should be something. I'm gonna go grab it and find it because it's like it plays well into this. Like people, if our government is well run, you should not have to, or people should not be going hungry. And they're like, if you're rich and like we should be abundant, like all of us together. But if we have a poorly run government, being rich and like flashy and excessive is like something to be deeply ashamed of. And you can see people in the street, and then you choose to like not donate money to people or like help communities. Yes, homeless people are prisoners too. Because they're trapped by capitalism and like it's just
It's an act of violence. True. Homelessness, it's an act of violence because there are, what gets me is when people say that the world is too populated. There's too many people on this planet. We don't have enough resources. That's why they're hungry. That's why they're homeless, because there's not enough, the world's too crowded. It's like, that's bullshit. Do you know when I take a road trip, how much vast land I see everywhere? There's plenty of space for everyone. We have all the resources that we need on this planet, and the earth is capable of providing all of our needs as long as we take care of the earth.
Right. And as it's also a problem of resource distribution because, like, again, back to the top, democratic centralism, when these small groups of people have power to distribute to the masses, like there's no way that they're not going to be biased, especially when they're people working for the US government that have been corrupted by like wealth and power and like the ideas of it's like there needs to be some way that we can get out of this centralized way of government, and because we're a massive country too, and so it's like there could be a lot of solutions. Jen, do you have any ideas? Because I need some guidance.
Well, I think that part of like breaking away from, like centralized thinking and like just recognizing that we can also be very revolutionary, like in our personal life, by just recognizing that like you can see things differently and you can help people on your own. You don't have to like sit there. Like one of the things I struggle with, I came from a upper middle class family and now I'm pretty much lower middle class, but like still hanging in there. And like one of the things that I realized with middle class people and like especially middle class white people, like everyone is so scared that they're about to lose what they have and be put into like this terrible situation, but that's why they can't help anyone else, and then so no one gets help. and like it somehow becomes the person who needs help becomes like the scapegoat. And like instead of seeing it as it is, that the centralization of government is like a great way for some really greedy people to propagate and like corrupt systems for their own benefit, you know. And yeah, we do need to have like a revolution, like, and we do need to like drastically change the system, but we could also just change the system's involvement in our everyday life and just be like, you know what, I can do something. Like,
Right.
I don't have that much money, but I know that I could make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And maybe like I won't be going out personally and feeding homeless people, but I know community organizers that do just that. And I could drop off sandwiches and soup to them. I could see like, okay, you're out on the streets helping people and like administering services our government should. As a mom, you know, like I can't do that every day, but how can I help you sitting at home? What are you not taking care of while you do that? And that's another way that we could be part of organizations and just give what we have when we can. And that's like everyone, you don't have to join something and like try to like have this mentality that we want to like move up in the organization. Instead, you can just
Move away from it.
yeah, and help where you can.
Right. As I think as revolutionaries, we definitely don't believe the hype that anything our the so-called state or surrogate state dishes out. You know, we're not going to drink the Kool-Aid, and we're not going to stand in their lines, and we're not just going to lay down and take it. You know, one of the many, many things that I really admire about the movement, the Black Panthers, and what the things that they were doing back in the day, they were like they were in service for the people. They were serving the people. It didn't matter what color skin you were. If you were in there, and they were doing it locally, and it just grew and grew and grew from their platform. And but they were feeding, 3,000 people a day. This was before the breakfast program. They were feeding 3,000 people a day, and then it grew into the feeding the children in the morning before school, in which the state, the government decided to go ahead and take that idea and start up the free meals program in our schools for the kids that they took back once the budget cuts kicked in. But that's a whole other story. Yep.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Really,
MJ
I think
said, right here, I'm just going to finish. MJ said change the system's involvement in our everyday life. And I agree with MJ. That's like, that I think is the one way that like we, even if we're not able to like always work with a group of people, like on fixing this one problem, like coming together for an event or like a protest, there are ways that we can make changes in our everyday life that if everybody does that, there will be change. And like if like, for example, you said you can't always go out and like, serve people, like homeless people, but if I can, I'm going to. Or like if I can go clean up, if I can pick up trash from the street, or like not eat red meat, or do all these other things like every single day, there's like a lot that my personal consumption or like personal input and impact to the world, like how I can change that. And you can like seriously track it too. Like if you just stop eating red meat, like there's like so many graphics about like you saved this much water, these many trees, like all this.
I would like to see that. That's awesome. Because I love steak, but I don't know. But sometimes I
voting vegetarian propaganda. No,
no, but I weigh in between on both sides. Sometimes I go vegetarian and I go raw. I go hardcore because I love that as well. I just like food, I like to eat. Kind of special.
We're human.
Yes, and everybody deserves to eat too. And I think so many people, especially when they have food like so accessible in their lives, just totally take that for granted. That like people, like I know there's this like when I was younger, it's like, oh, there are children starving in Africa. Like finish it. Well, there are children starving like
in America,
15 blocks south of where I live, and it's like not. it's not a faraway thing like famine or not famine, but like starvation is here. And yeah.
And here's the thing, like from kindergarten on, and I'm up there now, but from kindergarten on, the United Way, I hate to drop names like that, but I will. That organization was always like, give us your quarter, give us your nickels, to help feed the hungry children in Africa or whatever. Been giving them my fucking nickels, pardon my mouth, forever. And they're still starving children in Africa. Where did that money go? Because I know that with $20, I could probably feed at least 20 people. If I go to the market and make some food with $20, I'm sure I could feed 20 people with that. You just shop smart,
Yeah.
a healthy meal, not no BS either.
Yeah. Well, going back to like the Clintons and like the neo-libs, like that right there, that's like the broken nonprofit organizations cycle, and that it's crazy because you could even see that could be democratic centralism right there. Look at like all these big international groups that are supposed to provide aid, and
yeah, exactly.
It's embezzled, and then children go missing, and like there's all these like dark connections.
Hi, Red Cross. Yep. There's so many that's horrible. And Hillary Clinton and the Haiti fund, like Haiti Relief Fund, you should be ashamed of yourself.
Yeah.
Well, I found.
Oh, sorry.
Well, that's okay. I was going to go a little off topic, but it kind of has to do with the whole Dutch colonizing and imperialism that had all these and slave owners. But it relates to like culture, and I'm Puerto Rican, so hey, and Native American, but or First Nations. But I was learning this week on that bomba, a style of like dance and music, is actually it's an act of resistance. And I just there were like I was just studying the dance and the different words that they use for the different styles of dance. It's pretty interesting though to learn that bombo and this music was like an act of resistance, and no matter what the culture, the roots run deep, within all of us, and the culture, if you're not practicing it or identifying with it, it's there. It's deeply rooted within all of us. And if you don't know where it's at, find your community and plug in to that resource there, because we need that. That's like the lifeline within us. It's the blood that runs through it. It's what makes our hearts beat, before the wars and before the battles and everything else. Like, it's about the richness of culture and maroonity, community, So anyways,
I love that, maroonity.
So it looks like we're through our final hour. Any final thoughts, or I'm sorry, Carla, I don't want to cut you off.
Oh, no. We have like a little bit of a lag, so the interrupting thing is like, oh wait, no, but it's totally fine. What was I going to say about? Yeah, like one of the main things that like brightens me and like makes me so excited about doing this revolutionary work is that like I get to form communities with other people, and like that's like it's about, yes, like dismantling government and like oppressive systems, and it's also by doing that like we form these amazing communities, and I get to like have these fantastic relationships with people all across the world, and it's not scary. It's like something that is like wholesome and like brings you joy. And so anybody that I would say is like afraid to start, it's like not.
Yeah, we're like revolution is a global community.
Yes. I was gonna say one last thing about the mosaic, which was at the end of the chapter where Russell talks about like what his prefiguration of like what a society could look like. And so after he talks about Suriname, Jamaica, Haiti, and like disses Karl Marx, he has like this like little ending about the mosaic. And he's saying that the mosaic will not be an effort directed towards imposing any type of multiracial, multi-ethnic, gender-neutral, or conformist utopian universalism. No. The mosaic will allow individuals, organizations, and entire communities to exercise self-determination in deciding what types of social orders they choose to struggle to bring into being, while at the same time learning how to better come together with others to form societies that will be superior to the ones in which we now live. And so, yeah, forming this beautiful mosaic. Miss Remedy K, you're gonna take us away, finish us off? Or do you want me to? Okay. Well, I don't know where Jen went, but next week we will be back here.
Here she is. Oh yeah, sorry about that.
Sorry. Thank God you're
that's all right.
moderating this week. If we could come in for like an extra 5 minutes next week, like, because every time I try to go from the chat back, I wind up knocking myself off of this.
Okay, sure. Yeah. And usually 20 minutes before the meeting, but we'll talk about that off screen.
Sorry.
That's okay. Hey, you're beautiful and you're doing it. So go ahead. With the child on her hip. That's so lovely. So next week we're going to let's talk a little bit about the next chapter we're going to get into. And I think that the one on matriarchy or women, what is it? I just had it pulled up. I'm sorry. It was the chapter right before the Dragon and the Hydra. Hold on. Bear with me, people. Okay, so there's the Dragon and the Hydra. My phone is trying to bark at me. Uh-oh. Wait a second. I just had it. Is that it?
That's okay. I can just like while you're finding that, I'll just let people know. So next week, this week we finished up reading through pages 191, and so we went back from last week's reading to talk about this chapter, the Dragon and the Hydra. And so this week we will be finishing off the book, so pages 191 to 271. If you didn't,
no, we're not.
What?
I said, no, we're not finishing off the book yet. We're not yet.
Well, I think our reading schedule says that we are.
Okay, we'll talk about that off screen if you want.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
think with the whole March coming up, the matriarchy or like the feminism and is really important to get into. And there's actually a chapter here in the book that is on that talks about like matriarchy, and I think it's really important that we tap into that. So plus also I think that as long as Russell Maroon, the author of this incredible piece of work here, is incarcerated and with stage 4 cancer, it's important that we keep his name out, keep throwing his name out here. So I think if we take our time going through this book, it might be kind of special for as recognizing who he is while he's still with us here on this earth. Which brings me to the point, if you guys are interested in learning more about the author, I would strongly recommend that you do take a look at, there's a link in the banner above that goes to Russell Maroon's webpage. Check it out and please sign the petitions, call the governor, do what you can to help free Russell Maroon, and also help free all political prisoners, because if you don't, that could be you sitting in the cell next.
Right. And
right.
Chapter, it's Respect Our Mothers, Stop Hating Women. So that's next week. We'll be focusing on that. So take a deep dive in. Yeah, no problem. Take a deep dive into that one, and that is what we'll be centering around next week. Yeah.
Excellent. And any final thoughts? Mine. Free your mind, free your people.
And revolution.
Okay, well, free them all. Thank you all for joining us in the chat. We're glad you could make it here. We will see you there. And all power to the people, huh?
All power.
You're so beautiful, Carla. It's lovely to see your face. You too, dear comrades. Let's see.
Want to hop off live?
Yes, ma'am.